Gary Vaynerchuk has become incredibly popular online, especially amongst aspiring entrepreneurs. But despite what he may tell you, that's not just down to patience and hustle. Today we're delving deeper. You're watching Young Magnates, and this is why Gary V is really crushing it. Number 1. He avoids the guru label. In recent years, there's been a huge rise of people saying they're business experts and posting information online, and they all seem to follow the same formula. Put out free content, build an audience, and then sell them their premium info products, courses, and services. Personally, I see no issue with this if they're genuinely helping people and not ripping people off, but some of them are ripping people off, and so it now seems they all get lumped into the same guru category, which many people look down on and don't trust at all. Yet, Gary V has put himself in a category of his own. He followed the first 2 stages of the formula, but then doesn't sell any information products, courses, or coaching, and regularly reminds people he puts all his stuff out completely free. This gives off the idea he's just genuinely trying to help people, and so he generally dodges the scammer and guru label many of the others get. And it's a genius strategy to stand out because by separating himself from the others like this, he actually becomes way more popular, which makes him far more money in other ways. I mean, seriously, the guy seems to be speaking on a stage every day with an estimated speaking fee of over $200,000. And of course, all this publicity is undoubtedly helping his other businesses. You've got fans buying wine from him who don't even like wine.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, I don't drink wine. I've never liked it, but you know what, if I was ever going to start drinking wine, I figured I'm going to give yours a shot.
So the lesson here we can all take is you need to be the purple cow. This concept is from expert marketer Seth Godin and essentially reminds us we need to do something remarkably different from everyone else to stand out in our field. How can we separate ourselves from the pack like Gary does? The second reason Gary V is winning is that we see so much of his personality. Gary's pure drive and energy is enough to make anyone feel pumped and motivated after watching his videos, and that feeling is addictive. People keep going back for more. But what's often overlooked with content in general is that the people producing the best information aren't always the ones that win. On YouTube, there are thousands of videos on most subjects, including really detailed tutorials. But the ones that tend to do best combine that information with some entertainment. And one of the huge advantages of putting out as much content as Gary does is that people really get to see your personality, and Gary has a particularly unique and engaging personality. And so people come back for Gary, not necessarily just for his advice. You feel like you know him, you probably know about D-Rock, you feel like you're inside their world, and every video is like coming along for the ride with them because of the way it's shot. For example, if you watch Gary regularly, you probably know he wants to buy the New York Jets. You probably know his whole story. And so, from a creator perspective, it's a very good thing to be inviting people into your life a little more and putting out some content outside of your main niche, because then people buy into you and not just your information. And with Gary, because his personality is distinct and sometimes polarizing, that gets people talking about him, which simply spreads the word about his content even more. The third reason Gary V is winning is that his sound bites have mass appeal. If you watch any Gary V video, you can play Gary Roulette and pretty much guarantee that a phrase like "you've got time," "be kind," or "deploy self-awareness" will come up at some point. But that is because he seems to have found a selection of key messages that resonate with almost anyone. They're generic enough to appeal to pretty much everyone, but still feel specific to each individual. And so, whereas most creators have a fairly niche audience they appeal to, Gary has managed to appeal just as much to teenagers as he does to people in their 50s. And that's partly because his content doesn't normally go too deep into really specific strategies or issues. He doesn't do step-by-step tutorials. Instead, the messages are a little more surface level. But that also means they're universal truths for almost everyone, and so he can reach a very wide audience. For example, a speech he gives about the importance of making content can be repurposed for both college graduates and people in their 40s. And when you combine that mass appeal with the fact he is a great marketer with a huge budget, it's no wonder he's managing to reach so many people so quickly. The fourth reason Gary Vee is winning is first mover advantage. Gary started one of the first long form video shows on YouTube all the way back in 2006, and people just weren't doing that kind of thing back then. In fact, Gary is consistently testing different social platforms to see where the attention is right now. I imagine he's on several platforms we've never even heard of at the moment. But because he always gets in early, if a platform does really start to take off, he's in the prime position to capitalize. We witnessed this most recently with TikTok. Gary had been experimenting with it for a little while, he noticed the organic reach was becoming really great, and so he started telling others to use it, which actually in turn brought him loads more fans on the platform too. Plus, every time he's right with one of his predictions, that just reinforces his reputation as an expert even more. But from our perspective, there are several lessons we can learn here. The first is that these smaller platforms do represent a really interesting opportunity, because if you gamble on a couple of them and try to build up a presence on them whilst they're still small, you only need one of them to really take off, and then you'll find yourself way ahead of everyone else coming onto the platform. And the other lesson we can learn from this point is the way in which Gary repurposes content for these other platforms. Because he'll often give 1 hour-long speech which will get posted on YouTube, but then chop that up into smaller videos for all the other platforms. For example, for TikTok, it'll be a short, funny clip from the speech. And so, although without a team around us we can't make quite as much content as Gary does for every single platform, we can definitely repurpose our existing content for some of these newer platforms, and you never know what might just start to catch on. Now though, let's talk about this hustle mentality that is often linked with Gary, or if you want something a little lighter, here's a parody of every Gary Vee video in less than 15 seconds. Enjoy.